welcome back. What is up, everyone? It's Thomas with Real Broker, coming at you live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. going over the market stats, news you know about, think about buying, selling, or investing here in Northeastern Florida. And we're also doing a Q&A. So if you're watching it live or you're watching the replay, anything I cover here, this is for you guys. So leave me a comment or a question below, whether it's a news story, the market stats, or you have a question about a specific area you're interested in. Here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. to do this for you guys so that you can answer your questions. Much fluff that I can put in there. Outside of that, I always like to ask, where are we watching from? Are we watching from local here in St. Augustine? Recently, we've actually had a whole bunch of locals reaching out to me about buying and selling houses, which is awesome. I love that because we work with a ton of people relocating here to the area typically. So it seems like the YouTube channel is kind of being pushed here locally, which I'm kind of stoked about, honestly. It's a little different. So either way, let me know where you guys are watching from. Let's hop into it. I'm going to hop into the market stats, and then we'll go into the news stories. We typically start with a national news story, then a state of Florida news story, and then a couple local news stories. So we'll hop right into the market stats, and any questions, throw them in the comments below. If you find some value, throw me a like. It helps me in the algorithm. But let's do it. Gonna save that for later there. Let's see. Boo, boo, boo. Going into the analytics. You guys know I like my data. So we'll pull up the market insights. And this is going to be for all of Northeastern Florida. So we're talking about Baker County, Duval County, St. Johns County, Clay County. It's throwing all of them into one. We just got the new January numbers out. With it being February 4th, I imagine these numbers will be revised slightly up or down. I don't think by much, but if you guys have been a long-time watcher of the show, it just seems the month that may change this number. But if we're looking year over year across all the counties, it's flat. Flat as can be. 0% change. Well, I guess, $200. If you bought a house January 2025, you're up $200. Congratulations. You can afford to pay your phone bill for the month. But let's break that down, and we'll take a look at just St. Johns County. Now, St. Johns County, when we were looking at year over year, for December was flat, 495, 495. January looks like we're up a little bit. So it went down in January 2025 to 485, and now we're at 493. So up 1.7%. Once again, I mean, we've really been hovering around this 500,000 mark for the past couple years. And I think that's a sign of strength, right? In our market. People have been saying that's going to crash before 2019. Before, in 2012, people were saying the market's going to crash, and it hasn't, So what has happened is that we've had a crash in transactions. So I bet if I looked at closed sales, those are going to be down a good bit, down 10%, right? So prices haven't gone anywhere, but the amount of transactions that we've seen are down a significant clip. So let's just keep running it back here. So we go to January of 2024. Okay, only down 10% from there, so it's not terrible. So we're tracking pretty good there. I imagine 2022 to now is going to be the biggest drop. So we got down 15% from 23. And then if we go to January 2022, down 33%. Now, this was like an anomaly year, so this is July. So let's see, July of 2020, go here. January of 2022 really was like the peak of the market. 505 closings, and this is seasonal, so it always peaks down at that point. So down 33% in terms of closing. We're at 337 for the month of January. So I think that's something that really doesn't get enough credit when you're looking at the real estate market. We talk about, there's going to be a crash, and there has been a crash. It's just not a crash in pricing. We've seen a crash in transactions. Now, are there people that are, putting their homes on the market when they bought a couple years ago and not getting the same money? 100%. Because a lot of those people typically are buying from new construction, and then they're competing with the new construction builder in the same area. So I just helped someone out this past weekend. Actually, 2 buyers went under contract this past weekend. No, 3 buyers went under contract this past weekend. It was a busy week. And one of the buyers bought from a new construction in Trailmark, and they got over $50,000 in incentives on a it was listed at 397 on a $397,000 house. So that's over 10% of the purchase price putting back into the home in terms of rate buy down, closing cost incentives, and then doing certain things in the house like fridge, washer, dryer, screen enclosure, that kind of stuff. And they reduced the price by about $25,000. So I was blown away, like when they actually approved it. I'm totally for helping whoever's looking to buy new construction. I always tell them like my perspective on it, like, hey, we can ask for whatever, but they could say no, and if they don't, fantastic. I don't mind doing that. Now, if it's out of the realm of possibility, if you're talking about putting a $200,000 offer in on a $370,000 house, I want to buy that too, right? I'd buy it before you, but not realistic. But if you're saying, hey, you know what, instead of 370, would they do 355 and still give me all these incentives? That's a good deal, right? And you got a 4.99 incentive, 15K in closing costs, washer, dryer, fridge, screen enclosure, and 25K off the price. So pretty sweet. I told them, and of course I'm a realtor, so it's always hard to take me at my word, right? We get such a bad rap these days, but from my honest perspective, I was like, dude, you're getting a deal. This is solid. Like, it was probably one of the best deals I've seen. So 50 grand on a house, now they got it down to, I think, 362 or 367. That's killer. So either way, guys, let me know what you think about the questions about what I covered. Let me know in the comments below. Here for you guys every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Going on a next news story. And I got a couple. There's not really too much going on this past week. Seems like last week was better. But the contradictions of the housing affordability dilemma. So Axios put out this news story. So Trump, in his own comments, desire to maintain or raise property values for homeowners and the desire to make housing affordable for new buyers and renters. So, and they use this new term, I've never seen this before, a great deal of policy entrepreneurship is underway to address housing. Never heard, what does that even mean? Policy entrepreneurship. That is like the oddest term I've seen in a long time. But essentially, Trump wants to lower interest rates. And he said, Bloomberg reported that major home builders are working on a program to develop Trump homes, quote unquote, as many as 1 million of them with a rent-to-own financing to entry-level home buyers. Also, the White House announced the administration is directing Fannie and Freddie Mac to purchase up to $200 billion of mortgage-backed securities. This should bring rates down a little bit, nothing crazy, probably 1/10 of a point. So if you're at a 6% interest rate, it might be a 5.9% interest rate. Save you about $40 a month, which, hey, that's still something, right? And then meanwhile, Congress is working on bipartisan Road to Housing Act with a wide variety of provisions that aim to encourage more housing supply while also reducing barriers to home buying. So, the reality is that reducing mortgage rates is great for people with existing high mortgage rates who can refinance, and it might be advantageous for people right now, but with that, if you have lower mortgage rates, well then, more than likely you'll spur more activity, and the people who get in today will probably get that low mortgage rate. But just like what happened in COVID during 2021, 2022, everyone wanted to get in there and get those low mortgage rates, and that pushed pricing up, and that put us in the position that we are in today, where they say nationally we don't have enough houses for the people that want houses, and at the same time those houses that people want are unaffordable because of the interest rate being high. So really caught in a rock and a hard place here. And Trump has come out and literally said, this is a quote, we're not going to destroy the value of their homes so somebody who didn't work very hard can buy a home. The dude puts his foot in his own mouth all the time. But, I think that's also something that when you're running a country, I think you're kind of running a huge business, which Trump does, right? And you want to keep your employees happy, and a lot of your employees are the taxpayers, the property owners that pay a lot of taxes. You want to keep them happy, and at the same time, a lot of the people, baby boomers, the silent generation, a lot of their wealth and their net worth is within their homes. So it'd be a negative thing in general for a lot of people to put downward pressure on pricing, me included. I bought a house for, and if you bought a house within the past couple of years, you don't want to hear that they're trying to make houses more affordable, right? Because that just means that your house value is going to go down. You want to see interest rates go down so that your house value goes up, and it protects you a little bit. So, rock in a hard place. There's not a right answer to this. Talk about building more homes. Like here in northeastern Florida, we have tons of new construction. We have tons of land with new construction on it. And the thing is that the builders are buying down the rates. So like the payment is pretty affordable, right? So we don't really have that same issue of inventory like a lot of parts of the country have. But what we do have is an income issue because we don't have a lot of the income that many of the other parts of the country have. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. We'll go on to the next news story. Florida collects more than 5,000 frozen iguanas in a 2-day period. So, if you're not familiar, we got hit with some extreme cold. I'm surprised there wasn't a state of emergency here in the state of Florida because we got hit with some cold that we haven't seen in some years. And you actually had to go out and like winterize your home. So I know there's a couple of neighborhoods that had a lot of issues because people weren't doing this, and I thought about all the new construction homes. Like there's no way that Lennar, Dreamfinders, D.R. Horton, with the thousands of homes they have here in the area, that they're going to go out and winterize all of these homes for a 2 or 3 day span. So if you're buying one of those homes, get an inspection just to be sure. Yeah, so it's been brutally cold. It's actually warmed up today. So now we got up to the 70s, so it's looking good for us. But we were in the 20s, which if you live in the Northeast, that's like being in the negative, I would say, for us Floridians here. Because our winters are normally like at night 40, 50 degrees. During the day, it's 75. For us to be 20 to 30 during the day, that is extremely cold for us. So like I said, I was surprised there wasn't a state of emergency. And I've lived up north and I've lived here. And it's funny, is like when it's cold here, they're like, don't leave your house. Don't do it. Meanwhile, like you guys got a foot of snow up north and they're like, keep going. So it's just completely different how the two different areas treat things. So pretty funny. But let's go on to the next news story here, guys. It's no secret that it's been cold across the entire country. I remember when I went to school in Pennsylvania at a boarding school called Milton Hershey. And I remember walking to school one day and it was so cold that the boogers froze in my nose. And I think that was the coldest I remember, and now this past winter has been just as cold for you guys. So it seems like it's been brutal. I've had a couple of people reach out to me from the Northeast. Maybe that cold is pushing them this way because it's been nasty for you guys. Let's check this out. So this is an interesting one. So if you've watched this channel before, you've seen us talk about something like eminent domain and property rights, right? And St. Johns County and the city of St. Augustine, they have a history, and they just did it within this past year of taking over or trying to take over a property to build a flood wall in downtown St. Augustine. So they want to take over 2 properties using the government procedure of eminent domain. So city starts foreclosure process on a long troubled home in St. Augustine. So a home on South Lenardi Street in a small St. Augustine neighborhood is now being foreclosed after years of complaints from neighbors. They visited the property and spoke with Shane Peterson, who said the home has been in his family's entire life. Peterson explained that the city voted on January 26 to start the foreclosure process. Neighbors have long been concerned about the property, citing noise from heavy equipment and other disturbances. Peter acknowledged that he used to run a large firewood operation at the home, which caused noise issues. If they foreclose, I'd be homeless. The process of foreclosure started by a city commission meeting in late January, said it had been working for about 8 years on different complaints to bring the home into compliance and resolve liens, but was unsuccessful. So what they have is apparently that specific property has been an issue for almost a decade. Neighbors are like, hey, this is, we live in a no HOA area, but this house is crazy. And a lot of the complaints were around him stacking firewood up to 15 feet high. And the person that lives there, who has apparently lived there for his whole life and his family's lived there for their whole lives, says that specific home doesn't have a heating source. So he uses firewood. He also sells the firewood for the heating source. So I don't live in this, I don't live next to this house. I'm not sure all the issues that have gone on, but he's racked up over $100,000 in fines with the city because of all these issues. So the city's foreclosing on him, and I think he still has the ability to figure it out, but he's got to pay those fines, which if he had 6 figures laying around, I imagine he'd probably put heat into his house. So it brings in an interesting question of like, okay, hey, this guy's in a no HOA neighborhood, and his neighbors are complaining about his house, but it's his house. So what's the right thing to do? And now he's racking up fines from a government body because of the neighbors calling on him, and now his property and where he lives is going to be taken away, and he might be homeless because of it. What's the right answer? Now, here's the thing. Context is the biggest thing I would say in here, because it's been over a decade. Obviously, they've tried to give this person a lot of chances to rectify things and either ignored it or couldn't do it for whatever reason. But I'd really like if one of the neighbors are watching, like, let me know in the comments below what outside of cutting firewood and stacking firewood 15 feet high was such a problem. I'd really like to know, was it just unruly? Was there drug activity? Like, what was it? You know, I'd really like to know. They don't go into too much detail here. But what do you guys think? If you had a neighbor like that, you know, and if you had a neighbor like that, what would you want done, right? Would you offer a helping hand? Would you report them to the city? Mix of two. Now, this is me speaking on my personal experience. I have a couple of neighbors here that I can't stand what they do with their property. I hate it. And I also hate how much trash their property creates. And I pick up trash every Sunday out here. It drives me insane. But at the end of the day, it's their property. They can do what they want with it. And I fully believe that. I mean, outside of a couple things, right? But what's the right answer? I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. Live in an HOA. That's the right answer if you really want to have everything nice and tidy. But I don't know, guys. When you have government taking foreclosing on property for things like that, and, you know, kind of overreaching and saying, hey, you know what? We know what's best for your property, not you. I don't like that. I don't. But maybe I don't have the context of how terrible a neighbor this person was. Like, because maybe there's like a public nuisance type of situation where like, get this guy the fuck out of here. I don't know. Maybe he's a great neighbor, maybe he's not. Let me know in the comments below if you know any more about it. We'll go on to the next news story here, guys. Any questions, any comments about what we're talking about, let me know. Florida Senate approves Black History Museum in St. Johns County. So, Florida Senate Government Oversight and Accountability Committee approved a proposal today to establish the Florida Museum of Black History in St. Johns County. The decision follows a recommendation from a state-appointed task force to locate the museum at a site west of St. Augustine. So, if you've been following the channel, you know we've been covering this. West Augustine is seeing a good bit of a glow up here. So let's just go to, or not, let's just go to the maps here. I'll show you where they're going to be putting it. So you have downtown St. Augustine here. You have West Augustine over here. You can see my house right over there. And then you have the intersection of Holmes and West King Street, or I guess it's called, I don't know, yeah, I'll just say King Street Extension, but it's right here on the corner. So if you're familiar, there's actually a little park right here. There's a middle school up the street here, R.J. Murray Middle School, and they're going to be putting the Florida Black History Museum right here at the corner, right across from, if you're familiar, the firehouse. So right in this park here, they also moved the house that Martin Luther King stayed at here in St. Augustine, and also the house that Martin Luther King was shot at here in St. Augustine. So Street. This is on top of the parking garage being approved for right over here. So that's going to start here in July. Permits, I think permits and everything are to be finished by July, and then they're going to start building in September. It's supposed to take 2 years to build that parking garage. And that's on top of private business really moving into this West City area. So really exciting things for my local neighborhood here. I think it's great. I think it's also going to bring a different demographic of people coming to visit St. Augustine. Because outside of that, we also have Fort Mose, which I think I might as well pull that news story up here now. So Fort Mose was the first place that African Americans, Native Americans could live and own property free and clear in the United States. It was also the first line of defense for the Castillo de San Marcos. So the Spanish let I guess they were African Americans at that point, and Native Americans live in Fort Mose, but they were also the first line of defense for Castillo de San Marcos. So they've since, over the past couple of years, they remade the fort. So I think it just opened last year. They completely remade it to look like what they thought it looked like. And outside of that, they've been having a jazz and blues festival every single year. They've actually got some pretty sweet names up here. One I know is Gary Clark Jr., who is a great guitarist and singer-songwriter. Very, very good. He's coming February 7th. So as the 100th anniversary of Black History Month kicks off, an annual celebration of jazz and blues is back to bring culture and history to the First Coast. So my point is with that is that there is a different demographic that's going to be visiting here, primarily Black Americans, because of the history that we have here in St. Johns County surrounding the Civil Rights Movement and Black Americans and Native Americans, of course. So that's just a different look of the history that we have here, and we have a ton of it. It's the nation's oldest city. So I think it adds just another notch in the belt for St. Augustine in terms of like tourism here. And it's also going to stretch people out of downtown into the northern part of St. Augustine, into West Augustine as well. So I think that's going to be good for the neighborhood. I think it's going to be good for the local businesses here. I'm a big fan. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What you think about that. I got, I think, 2 more news stories here, guys. So sound off if you got anything. Nope, I got 1 more news story. I lied. Ponte Vedra Concert Hall partners with the Players Championship to launch new concert series. If you're not familiar with Ponte Vedra Concert Hall, it's a great little music venue. They just completely redid it. It opened about, I think, 6 months ago. But they're going to debut the Sounds of Sawgrass concert in the competition rounds of the Players. This year's series will feature Tracy Lawrence on March 12th and Robert Earl Keen on March 14th. So fans can come, have a great golf weekend with TPC, and then follow it up by live music. So that is something that is amazing, because the Players Championship is a huge attractor of people to that area specifically. There, if you live in that area, you know it is. It's awful. It's not great. But if you're going to the Players Championship, it's a lot of like people here locally just take off of work and go. So really cool. And to have that also as like kind of a cap to the Players Championship is like, hey, by the way, we're also going to have these concert series going on the tail end of it, so that you can make a whole week out of it, make a whole weekend. So you come here, golf, go watch some live music, and head home. So I think that's an awesome idea. It's right in the same area. You know, they're probably 5-10 minutes apart from each other. So keep everyone there locally, and it's just another cool thing happening here in St. Johns County. It just seems like this area keeps growing, and there's some negatives to that. 100%. There are definitely some negatives to that, but I personally like St. Augustine today more than I liked St. Augustine when I was a kid 20 years ago. Obviously, I can do a lot more, but there's just a lot more variety of things to do. There's a lot more food. There's a lot more concerts. There's bigger and better concerts that are coming. So I just think it's awesome. So guys, either way, if you've gotten some value out of this so far, do me a solid and like the video or comment and just let me know, like, hey, I appreciate what you're doing here. We're here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. going over the market stats, the news you know about, everything about buying, selling, or investing here in Northeastern Florida. And we're also doing a Q&A. We didn't have any questions, didn't have any comments tonight, so I'm going to call it an early night. But last week we went for like 45 minutes to an hour just going off with all the people commenting and questioning all the things that we were talking about. So every single week here, we're here, guys. I'll see you next week at 8 p.m. Have a good one.